Hello there, friends, and welcome to Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addictions. It is episode 9, and we're just so excited that you're here. You've been here night after night, and it's our joy to welcome you back. This is the one before the last. We got one more tomorrow night, and we've got a wonderful experience in store for us tonight. But before I talk about that, I want to remind you that if you are here for the first time, thank you in a special way. And if you haven't registered yet, sometimes you just found the link. Someone sent it to you, which is wonderful. We love when people do that. But if you register even tonight and you see the information there on the screen, it's just as easy as 1, 2, 3. And then you can be eligible for the book giveaway. You know, I'm talking about one of the best reads in the world. I'm serious. This is Pastor Ricci's own story of Unchained 22 years ago. And so you really want to have an opportunity to run for one of these. And so we're going to do another one at the back end after Pastor Ricci's message tonight. And one more tomorrow. So go ahead and register right now. And if you can think, I know I sound like a broken record, but you know what? I'd rather do that because it really works in terms of touching someone else's, life. Out there, imagine somebody who has hit bottom and they don't know what else to do. And if you can think of someone or ask a friend and say, do you know anybody who might, be in a struggling situation right now with addictions, go ahead and hit that person up with that link and they can receive that measure of hope that will make all the difference in the world. You know what I'm saying? Yes? All right. So we're blessed to have Darius Ziegler with us tonight. Welcome, Darius.
Thank you.
We're going to hear his amazing story of Unchained, of leaving behind a life of addiction and embracing a life of freedom. And later on, as usual, as always, we will be blessed by another powerful message by Pastor Ricci. Tonight, he's going to be covering the theme of breaking the chain of self. But right now, we'll turn our attention to our guest. Darius, you were born and raised around these areas, right?
That's correct.
And so, welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And we will just turn our attention to you as you take us through the story of your life, overcoming the addiction that you're going to share with us.
Oh, yes, sir. No problem. So, at a very young age, I didn't realize that most addictions start somewhere. And a lot of times, our addictions don't have to be necessarily something that we ourselves pick up. It could actually be something that's passed off to us from someone else. As a child, I was very healthy and active, but someone in my family decided to introduce me to what we consider junk food, and I began to stop eating healthily. I was eating very poorly. I ate so poorly to the point that I actually had to have multiple teeth extracted and had to get them filled in and drilled in.
That sounds serious.
It was very serious. I was around like maybe 7 years old because I wouldn't eat regular food. I would eat nothing but candy, any type of sweets that you could find, like I could grab my hands on. I would sneak it. I would take it when my mother would tell me not to. I would just constantly eat it. And what I didn't realize at that age is that worse addictions come as a result of what we consider minor ones. I didn't think anything of the point of me just gorging on junk food and my health being poor. I was getting sick. I didn't think anything of it. I began to become overweight as a child. But what ended up happening as I grew older, the addiction for junk food turned into an addiction for junk itself, not just the food, but anything that was visually stimulating that was we considered junk, like pornography, like horrible music, it ended up as an outgrowth of me eating that horrible food as a child. And I continued this as an adolescent. I was introduced, as I was continuing to eat these junk foods, to pornography and extremely grotesque music as a child. And these habits just continued to grow, and they worsened as an adolescent into my teenage years, because now I'm trying to play sports and I'm trying to be a teammate to people, and it was making my performance suffer, because it's kind of hard to be very active and to be competitive or determined when you have an addiction that you want to pursue, and genuinely or generally you want to pursue your addiction more than you want to pursue anything else.
It takes over.
It does. It as they say, you don't do it, it does you.
Right.
And it really did it took over with my health. It took over with time. It was a big time consumer. You're always sneaking around because you don't want people to find out what you're doing, and you want to convince yourself that what you're doing is okay. It got so bad to the point that as I went into adulthood, it was actually beginning to affect my job and my career, because that was one of the things. Like I was in the armed forces, and one of the things they don't tolerate you being unhealthy. And they don't tolerate you listening to explicit music, looking at explicit things. They don't tolerate things like that. But it's kind of hard for you to get someone to understand that when they have a severe addiction to things like that.
So you found yourself in that tug of war.
Yes, it was a very hard tug of war, because it was overtaking my life to the point that it was affecting my job performance. And what ends up happening is you start to make excuses for why you should do it and when you should do it, even if you're told that you shouldn't do it, because they have very strict rules that you can't do this, you don't do these things. But when you have an addiction and the addiction is doing you, you're going to make a way or try to make a way around it to try to do those things. And what happens when you break rules, you end up getting caught. You end up getting caught, and it really did. I got severely written up. I was severely written up. But even after that, the addiction was still controlling me. Even though I seen that punishments were coming, problems were happening in my personal life, with friends, on my job, I still wasn't changing my dietary habits. And because I wasn't changing my dietary habits, it started affecting my sleep. Because I wasn't changing either of those things, I was still gorging on the explicit music and the explicit things that I was watching, and it was really taking a toll on me mentally and physically, to the point that I just thank God that even then, though I was like heavily addicted into those things, that He spared me and kept me alive. Because there was one night that I was so exhausted that I literally, from not sleeping, I passed out in the bed. I literally fell into the bed from exhaustion. They came to my room to try to wake me up, and they told me that they sent like 4 different people. They were beating and banging on the door. I never heard anything. They actually had to come in. They saw me, and they had to literally try to physically because I was so physical. I've never been that exhausted before in my life. I couldn't hear anything.
Your body just shut down.
Shut down.
You said, this far and no more, and just turned off all lights. Almost all lights.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost all lights. It literally, it shut me down. My body was giving me a warning, like as you were saying.
That sounds scary.
Yeah, it really was, because I've never had that experience ever again, thank God. But just looking back on it, and it doesn't stop there. It continued to go. But just thinking about that, passing out to the point of exhaustion, where I couldn't hear anything that was going on in the outside world.
You remember coming back?
I just remember them coming to me that next day, telling me that we beat on your door. We called, and I had like 21 missed calls. They said, we called you. We finally had to send someone with a key to open up the door, and we found you. I didn't remember any of that. The only thing I remembered was someone talking to me that morning. I didn't remember anything else. I don't have any recollection of anything else.
Do you remember what that person said?
Are you okay?
I guess that sounded good to you, right?
Well, see, I didn't understand what he was, why
You
he
were
was
like,
there. I was completely.
Why are they asking?
Yes, I was completely out of it. They were like, hey, are you okay? I was supposed to be at work, and they took me in, and I remember speaking to one of the captains there. He was in such disbelief that he was like, we've never had a person that was so irresponsive. Like, you weren't responsive. They said normally if you missed work, we'd have to write you up, but like, you were not responsive.
Mhm.
You were not responsive. So there was a grace of God there. Even in the midst of my addiction, God was still trying to draw me to it. He was still.
It kind of sounds like there is, I mean, you're going to go on with the story, it's fascinating. I'm sure, people are already at the edge of their seats. Would that have been your first bottom?
I would
Hard
say
hitting it?
that would have been the first hard hitting bottom, because that was pretty severe.
Mhm.
Because that should have, like he said, that should have turned into a very bad situation. And I should have gotten written up severely, but it didn't.
Or worse yet, that could have been your last night.
Yeah, that could have
Your
been my last night.
Last
I
night
couldn't.
on Earth.
That could have been my last night on earth, because I don't even remember what happened.
Yeah.
I was blessed to wake up.
Yeah.
That could have been the end of me.
So then, that day was like what? Once you woke up
Once I woke
and
up
realized what had happened.
and what had happened to me, I was so happy that I didn't get in trouble, that I was overjoyed. But the problem was, I didn't see it for what it was. I didn't see it for the mercy that God was having. I saw it as an out,
Okay.
that I got an easy out.
I
got away.
You got a break.
Yeah, I just caught a break.
Mhm.
And it caused me to just go right back into what I was doing. Because
Right.
there was no ramifications. There was no punishment. Even though I was completely exhausted, my body was, I ended up failing a physical exam, but it didn't stop me, because I didn't see to where I'm getting pinned against a wall. So now the addiction is just becoming stronger. It's becoming stronger. It's like a hunger growing. I've learned through it all that every addiction is nothing but simply a hunger for something. It's a hunger for something, and it just enraged in me, and it actually made me become more boastful with it, to where I was just going to do it whenever I got ready to. See, because of that, as time went on, it did get worse.
And by now, had it crystallized into something that was like one? You had several, right? You had music, you had junk food, all of those bridges, bad stuff. At this point, had it crystallized into more of a one
Yes,
addiction?
it had literally, from all those waypoints, it pushed towards just one of them, to where I was just heavily just addicted to pornography as a result of it. And I would just, any time that I potentially could, even when I had no business doing it at all. But when I should have been working and doing things that I know I should have been doing, I was trying to spend more time finding excuses to go after that. It was to the point that I actually ended up stealing so that I could get a hold of it, because it began to just control and do more and more damage, where I was stealing things, trying to purchase it, stealing money. It was literally controlling me.
Like out of control.
Yes,
You were out of
I
control.
was out of control
You were totally under the control of this force.
of this force. And the bad thing about it was no one knew. No one knew about it because I was too ashamed to tell anybody about it. I didn't want to tell people that I was stealing, that I was going into places. It's so sad that, I read about people that steal and they literally make it a profession. I had gotten to the point that I was like one of those people, that I had literally made stealing a profession so that I could get the thing that I was addicted to.
That you could have that food.
That food,
that
yes.
feeling. Yeah.
That feeling that I wanted, that rush, that experience. I had literally gotten
Still in the
that.
Air Force.
Still in the Air Force.
All right.
And it literally just kept on just spiraling more and more out of control. What happened that even made it far worse was it started to affect my relationships with people.
Okay.
Because when you want to do something and you want to do it now, but other people are asking you to do something at that time, it can cause you to become angry. It can cause you to become upset because they're interfering with the time. You're messing with my time, the where I want to go and do this, and I can't do this because you're asking me to do this or asking me to go to this place with you.
Now, I suppose you weren't really in touch with that side of you. You just knew that, hey, I don't like this interference, right?
Yes,
And they could see it more than you could. Yeah.
yes, because I was becoming enraged at them.
Family.
Family, friends,
Friends.
just getting upset because I wanted to do this thing, and here you come interfering with me. As you were saying, like, I didn't see it as that at the time, but I just knew that I wanted to go and do this. But at the time, you're coming and you're interfering and you're asking. I don't want to do what you're doing or what you want me to do. I want to do what I desire to do at this particular
So
time.
you've gone from bad to worse,
Yes.
and it's escalating. What happened?
So after I got out of the military, and I actually moved back here, because at the time I was living out west. I moved back here, and as they say, old habits die hard. Now I'm really alone. I'm living alone. Even though I have family around here, I'm living alone. So I have nothing but time to really just engorge and indulge in this particular addiction. And it was still doing the same, stealing, lying, hiding, becoming angered and enraged. And now I have a new job. A couple of years later, I have a new job. And I'm working, and I would use work as a cover, because this job would allow me to work late hours. And not only would you work late hours, but a lot of the times you could be by yourself.
Sort of like the perfect environment to indulge in your addiction.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. And you want to know the God really does, I think, have a sense of humor.
Okay, here we go.
Because I had gotten to, as I look at it now, a very, very low point to where it's still affecting my job performance, because they were using me as I guess you would call it a runaround, to where they would send me to different locations to where I could go, and I may have to work in this city tonight for a few days, and now I may have to go 2 or 3 hours here. And I thought that was like the perfect escape, because I was like, wow, I'm by myself in these hotel rooms and can do whatever. But God has a sense of humor.
Something happened as a surprise, huh?
So I'm sitting at a family member's house, and they put in this film.
Okay.
It was a Bible film.
A Bible film.
And
Bible movie.
It's a Bible movie. And usually when people play things, you don't really pay.
Not what you were into.
Yeah, not what I was really into at that time. And I just happened to catch a few scenes of it. And
You remember what it was?
it was called The Final Events of Bible Prophecy.
Wow. Okay.
And there was one scene that clearly spoke to me. It was when they were showing the New Jerusalem come down from heaven, and the Lord was sitting on his throne, and he was getting ready to judge all those that were lost. And I remember it was not my voice. I heard a voice in my head. And that voice told me that if you continue doing what you're doing, the fate of those people will be your own. It startled me.
To say the least.
To say the least, it startled me. I was a bit spooked. But I don't think I really took it to heart at that moment.
Didn't sink in.
It didn't
all
really
the way.
sink in until one night I was coming home from my job. And the road that I usually ride on, the road seemed very dark. It was a very dark road, and there was no one behind me. There was no one driving beside me. I was the only one on the road. And I remember stopping in the middle of the road, pitch black, down one of these county country roads. And I looked through my window, my windshield, and I looked up into the heavens, and I said, Lord, if you're listening to me, free me. I said, please, you have to free me because this is going to kill me. You have to be the one to free me. You have to be the one that sets me free because I can't do this.
First time you prayed?
About
in a long time?
Like that, yes, in a long time. And I said, you have to set me free. You have to set me. I cried. I don't know how long I was there on that road, but the marvelous thing about it, no one ever came. Like
It
no other
was
car. It
you?
was just me in the pitch black, dark, nothing but fields all around, just a country road. There were no street lights. It was just me stopped in the middle of the road.
Just bearing your heart open
Yes.
to God, right? He said, if you're listening,
Yes.
and as you continue on, I mean, you were there for at least an hour.
I was there for a while because I didn't look at the clock. I didn't care about any of that. I just stopped the car in the middle of the road and I just poured it all out. And I said, if you're listening, please.
Was there a point, Darius, that night, out there, pitch black and all, where you went from if you are listening to a sense that he was?
I think by the next day, I believe that he was.
So you went home with that question mark. I mean, how did you feel? Give us some ideas of the emotions that were running through you.
I was worried because at that point, I had begun to realize that my addiction wasn't just hurting me, it was hurting him.
All of a sudden, you begin, those layers of blindness
Yes.
began to just peel back,
Yes.
and that kind of rattled you.
Yes. That was the
Made you
beginning.
feel like one of those, what have I been doing? Right?
Yes.
What was I thinking type of thing, right?
Yes.
And so how did you relate to all of this?
Well, what I started to realize was every person that I had hurt. He helped me realize from that point, as you were saying, it started to peel back the layers that what you were doing over time, you were burning bridges, you were destroying relationships, friendships, wasting time with family, things that you aren't able to go back and reclaim, but you can at least try to amend and redeem as you go forth. It really hurt me because it made me realize all the time and the energy and the efforts that I had wasted, that I could have been doing something more productive, and I could have been using that time to help people, to be a friend, to be a brother, to be a son, to be a companion, to be anything better than what I was. My health had taken a toll. My mind had taken a toll. My body had taken a toll. I was destroying literally everything in my life.
Did all of that come in waves?
Yeah, it came in waves.
Thank God, right?
Yes.
It didn't all of a sudden
No,
just,
it didn't
here
just-
comes the whole truckload and dump. It just kept coming.
Yes.
Right, it took, what, a few days, a couple of weeks?
Probably a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Everything was just unraveling to me, and by God's grace, what it ended up helping me doing, I didn't realize the importance of having an open conversation and fellowshipping as far as being able to talk to other people. It made me want to go back and repair the things that I had destroyed. Whether it was me drafting a letter to an individual and saying, hey, I apologize, like God has come into my life and he's helped me realize the errors of my past and the things that I did and I shouldn't have done. I asked him to forgive me. Will you forgive me? It took a lot of prayer. It took a lot of meditating on the word for God to get me to that point, but I realized that it was crucial that I needed to go and amend the things that the addiction had caused me to sever.
I bet it took a lot of energy.
It did.
And determination, right? That's fascinating, Darius. It definitely causes us to stop and think about the grace of God. And, I can't shake off the fact that it was one of those unexpected, unassuming, unpretentious kind of moments when this family, right, that invited you to their home that night, when all of a sudden you say, oh, we're going to watch a movie here, and all of a sudden you're watching a Christian movie and such. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place that family, no doubt, being used by God, right, at that precise moment? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put it?
10 being the highest?
10 being the 10?
I have to put him
or
at
maybe
a 10.
a 20, huh?
Yeah. I have to put him at a 10, that God was, it was right on time.
It's one of those things, they had no idea, right?
None
they,
at
they
all.
just were being nice to you. They probably realized that, you didn't have Christ in your heart yet. So, well, let's be soft. We'll just play a movie, right? Type of thing. They had no idea. And of course, as everything started to unfold, they became aware of the victory that. So you were writing letters and phone calls with their cell phone already? Now, you're a young guy, so for sure, yeah. What am I asking? Yeah, okay, forget about that. And all of that, and then what happened? You were sensing like you're done. The shackles no longer held you.
Yes.
Right? That happened before or after you start writing all those I'm sorry letters?
It happened.
Simultaneously?
I would say more simultaneous, because I felt the freedom, but I felt it even more when I apologized. Because I believe that even though God may have freed me, I think I was still punishing myself. And I didn't free myself until I apologized.
Two-way street.
Yes.
Okay. And as you went from that point in your experience to what? What came next?
What came next was a closer relationship with God. It made me have the desire to get to know God better, to delve deeper into his word, to spend more time with him, to be more involved with ministerial work, to do things to where I could help other people.
Were you like part of a small group
Yes.
and kind of got together, studied Bible and prayed together?
Yes.
Lend strength to one another, kind of.
Yes.
Wow. So, and you're still just yourself, right? I mean, you got your siblings and they're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, you're working. And at what point did your life go into that more responsible experience of being a husband and a father and such?
It was
a long time between going unchained until that
No.
started to happen?
No, it actually kind of happened right after.
Right after?
Right after.
Okay, yeah. And I'm sure you were extra glad and thankful to experience this, not just normalcy, but, I mean, how many years did that go for?
Oh, you're talking about at least 18 years?
Really?
Yes,
Okay. Now that's a chunk of time.
yes.
That is really a chunk of time. So all the more special, I imagine, and incredible it felt to be free.
Yes.
And now I suppose you have been sharing your testimony. I understand you've got a YouTube ministry of your own. And how prevalent do you see as you talk to people? You know, you go to work every day, so you got people out there. How prevalent is this addiction nowadays?
It's very prevalent.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I'd say it's a hidden addiction
Hidden.
because
Yeah.
people can easily hide it.
Right.
It's not something that you can just see as like something that attacks you physically.
Right, right. And, you know, we got viewers here who are relating to that kind of struggle. Others who are watching are very concerned. They have a family member, they have a close friend that is struggling with something like that. What would you say to these two distinct groups that are watching right now here at Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addictions?
So, me personally, one of the big things that I would suggest for anyone is that first and foremost, you need to admit that you have a problem. You have to admit that it is an addiction and don't try to deny it to yourself. That's the biggest issue that most people face. They try to lie to themselves and they try to rationalize it. It's an addiction. It's unhealthy. If it was healthy, you would do it in front of other people.
Right.
So it's an unhealthy habit that has to be broken, and the best thing that you have to do after admitting it is you need to seek a higher power. You have to go to our God and Creator, and you have to plead on His mercy and His grace, ask for forgiveness, ask for strength to overcome, and then you also need a support group. You need someone to support you. You need to be open and honest and tell someone that you love and that you know is willing to help you.
Wow, that is very clear and within reach.
Yes.
Right, within reach, and thank God for that. He is the hero, right? Jesus is our hero. He came down, overcame all kinds of stuff. He faced it all on our behalf so that we would know for sure He knows how to identify and how to help us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been a blessing indeed to have you with us tonight, and our viewers, I'm sure. Just say a few things on the chat, you know, if you felt especially blessed and encouraged by Dario Ziegler's story of going unchained. And we're going to turn our attention now to our special speaker, presenter, Pastor Richie Halverson, as he shares with us this most powerful message, breaking the chain of self. Let's have a look.
Welcome to Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addiction. In every message we have heard and we learned we've got to get honest. You know, before we can ever deal with the problem, we've got to admit we have a problem. Then we've got to believe that there's someone bigger than us that can restore us to sanity, that is powerful enough to help us in our situation. And then we've got to be willing to apply that to our lives. We've got to have this thing called faith, where we step out and give this spiritual principle a try. Next, we learn the importance of courage. Fear shouldn't paralyze us. Now, courage is not the absence of fear, but it's rather walking through the fear. We feel the fear, but we don't let the fear paralyze us. Then we learn the importance of humility and being teachable and learning, not thinking we know everything or have it all together. And then we learned the freedom of forgiveness and reconciliation, that real amends is not saying you're sorry. Real amends is discontinuing the behavior that required the sorry in the beginning. It's restoring the relationship to the way it was before the pain, before the hurt. And then we learned perseverance. Man, if we're going to break free, if we're going to live an unchained life, we've got to keep going. We cannot give up. You've got to persevere, persistent, practice, and stay going forward. And today we're going to talk a little bit about something called love. Love, serving others. So talking about these spiritual principles, that's easy. But practicing them in our lives and in day-to-day situations, not so much. It's not always easy to love people, especially in the world that we live in. 1 John 4:8 says, anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. You see, only through love can we ever come to know God. You can be very religious and not know God. You can be very successful and not know God. But the real God and real love, those things go hand in hand. If you had to use just one word to describe God, power, it would be love. It's not always the picture painted by Christians, right? It's unfortunate that often Christians are some of the most unloving people at times. And so love is not always the picture painted by Christians, but it is the picture painted by the Christ that is in Scripture. 1 Corinthians 13:13 says, 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, all right, that's right there in our first 2 steps, and love. But the greatest of these is love. 1 Corinthians 14:1 says, pursue love. See, you got to go after your recovery. You've got to go after the unchained life. It's not going to come to you. You've got to pursue love. We got to go after it. We can't live an unchained life without love. 750 years before Christ, a prophet named Hosea wrote a book that I believe is one of the greatest books on the subject of love. Hosea 2:19, it says, I will betroth you. I will marry you to me forever. This is God speaking. I will betroth you to me in righteousness, in justice, and in steadfast love and in mercy. Hosea 1:2, it says, when the Lord began speaking through Hosea, the Lord said to him, go and marry an unfaithful wife and have unfaithful children, because the people in this country have been completely unfaithful to the Lord. The New Century Version says unfaithful, but what the actual word it uses there is whore. Eugene Peterson in The Message put it like this, Hosea 1:2. The first time God spoke to Hosea, he said, find a whore and marry her. Her name is Gomer. They have 3 kids together, 2 boys and 1 girl. When the first child, Jezreel, is born, Hosea 1:3, she conceived and bore him a son. But with the next 2 kids, she bore him is missing. And so there's a good chance with children 2 and 3, Maury Povich would say, Hosea, you are not the father. The daughter's name, Loruma, means no mercy. God is upset because his people are his people in name only. They show no mercy. Have you ever met any self-proclaimed Christians maybe like that, or people who might have been very religious, but they had no mercy, they had no love, they had no grace? That's what God is saying about Israel. His son Lo-Ami means not my people. For you are not my people, and I am not your God. In Matthew 7:21-23, Jesus says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did I not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, and do mighty works in your name? Yeah, but you didn't love anybody, and so I never knew you. We see knowing God and love inextricably linked. 1 John 4:7, beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Unless we love, we can call ourselves followers of God, we can call ourselves Christians, we can call ourselves people of love, but we're not. Our name is Lo-Ami, not my people. So things go from bad to worse for Hosea when one morning he wakes up and he finds that Gomer is gone. Suddenly Hosea is a single dad and he's raising 3 kids, 2 of which are not his. You see, real love isn't always easy to do. But if you want to live an unchained life, you're going to have to learn how to love. You're going to have to learn how to love the hard to love. Hosea 3:1, the Lord said to me, go again and love a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, even as the Lord loves the children of Israel, though they turn to other gods. So during this time, Israel embraced pagan philosophies that taught that love could be purchased. But the reality is real love can't be purchased. They bought into this idea that love is found in the pursuit of self-gratification, that love could be found in the accumulation of stuff, or that love, that real satisfaction was selfish and self-seeking. And so God asks Hosea to help him show his people what real love looks like. You know, real love does not close itself off from people in need. Real love does not shut people and a community out of our lives just because they look different, just because they act different, worship different, just because they have problems and you don't think you have problems. Real love doesn't close itself off and ignore people in pain. Hosea goes looking for Gomer. You see, real love goes looking. We got to go looking for the people in pain. We got to go looking for the people that are hurting. In recovery, there was a saying I remember hearing very early on, and that was that the newcomer is the most important person at any meeting because you cannot keep what you have without giving it away. And very early on, you know, I'd go up to my sponsor and be like, oh, this is happening at home, and oh, this is a problem, and I can't believe this is going on, and you know, this person's upset at me, and my sponsor told me, Richie, the best way to get out of yourself is to do something nice for someone else. And he introduced me to this thing called service work. I was given the job of making the coffee. And it took me several tries to get the coffee right, but man, me just coming to the meetings and having a job and doing something for someone else instead of doing something for myself, that was love. Coming early and setting up chairs, you know, it seemed simple, it seemed small, but man, that's what I needed to do to get me out of myself. That's what real love does. It goes looking for someone to help. It goes looking for something to do. We live in a very selfish culture. We need people to go look for people that are hurting like they're hurting. And the reality is, the greatest way to live an unchained life is help other people live an unchained life. We can't keep what we have without giving it away. So just think of some of the places that Hosea had to go look for his wife. He's got to go to the red light district. He's got to go to the bars and the brothels in order to find his wife. He's got to go up to the pimps and the pushers and the bartenders, and he's got to say, have you seen my wife? Oh, sorry, man. I didn't know you guys were still a thing. No, she's not here anymore. And so Hosea has to go out and keep searching. When Hosea finally finds Gomer, it's not a pretty sight. She's being auctioned off. I hope you know, man, that's what addiction does. That's what this thing, sin, can do. It uses you up and then it sells you out. It will never give you the satisfaction that you're looking for. It will never take care of you. Hosea 3:2, so I brought her with 15 shekels of silver and a homer of lethech of barley. Now that wasn't that much money. In fact, it was about the amount to hire just a normal housekeeper. So Gomer's been passed around so many times, she's not worth much to anyone anymore. She can only go for a little bit, and yet she's worth something to Hosea. I want you to know right now, you are worth something to God. You are worth so much. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world. It doesn't just say He loved the world, it says He so loved the world. If God spoke to you through a text message, it would say, God so loved you that He gave His life, his life for you. He gave His only Son, that whosoever believes in Him should not perish, but have eternal life. And so here we have Hosea. He's willing to pay whatever the price is to get his wife back. God was willing to pay whatever price in order to get you back. Hosea is paying for what was already his. It's his wife. In 1 Corinthians 10:26, it says that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. You see, on the cross, God paid for what was already his. After this, Hosea renews his vows to Gomer, and he says in Hosea 3:3, then I told her, from now on you're living with me. No more sleeping around. You're living with me and I'm living with you. I'm committed to you and you're committed to me. Friends, that's the kind of love that changes everything. Hosea 3:5, after this, the people of Israel will return to the Lord, their God, and follow him and the king from David's family. They will tremble in awe of the Lord and of his goodness. And so here we have Hosea. He's standing there with his wife, who's cheated on him a few times, he's had to buy back from the auction block of slavery and sin. And that's when God gives Hosea a vision of Jesus Christ. According to that text in Hosea, what causes the people to come back to God? It said it was his goodness, his love. It's interesting, the name Hosea means salvation. Psalms 95:1 says, God is the rock of your salvation. You know what the name Gomer means? It means completion. Ephesians 1:23, and the church is his body, and it is made full and complete by Christ. Guys, only in the love of God will you feel absolutely complete. Because God is the only one who knows absolutely everything about you and still chose to give his life for you. Matthew 9:11, the Pharisees asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with such scum? Have you ever felt like scum? Jesus came for the scum of the earth. What they called worthless was worth everything to Jesus. And Jesus was always hanging out with the people that the church people had thought were worthless. But friends, the worthless are worth everything to God. The Pharisees were very religious, but they did not know how to love. And so they did not know God. People can go to church and they can act like they know God, but unless you love, you don't know him. And interestingly, Jesus starts quoting Hosea 6:6. He says, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy. I desire love, not sacrifice. For I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. The people who thought they knew God most actually knew him least. Because it's only through love that we can really know God. It's only through serving other people that we can really be set free. It's only in our focus on someone else that we can get out of ourselves. Romans 3:23 and 24, everyone has sinned. We all fall short of God's glorious standard, yet God in his grace freely makes us right in his sight. He did this through Christ, Jesus, when he freed us from the penalty of our sins. God loves you so much that he will not let you go. Man, I've tried to run away from God. I've tried to leave his love, but he keeps coming after me. That's the kind of God that we have. That's the kind of love that he has for you. Luke 19:10 says the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. You see, Jesus is our Hosea. He says, I'm going to keep on looking for you. I'm going to keep on knocking on the doors for you. I'm going to keep asking people where you are. And when I find you, it doesn't matter if it's in the bar or the brothel or the boardroom or the bedroom, in the crack house or the White House. When I find you on the selling block of addiction, broken, beaten, covered in chains, I will give everything I have just to get you back. 1 John 4:11, beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. You see, when we realize what our Hosea did for us, we can't help but go after other Gomers that are hurting. Man, we work with people, we work with Gomers, people that are sold out, that are broken, that are hurting, that have been used up. We work with Gomers, we live with Gomers. We all are Gomers. Are you willing to go after people that are hurting? Are you willing to help someone? Are you willing to do something for someone else? Are you willing to remind them that they have someone who loves them? Before we can ever love someone else, we have to first see and realize how much we are loved. Before we can ever love others, we must see how God loves us. 1 John 4:19 says, we love because he loved us first. Hosea 2:13, you went after other lovers and forgot about me. You know, the problem with that is the only love that can really satisfy us is God. Hosea 2:7 says she will chase after her lovers, but she'll never catch them. She will look for them, but she'll never find them. And then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than I am now. I wonder, have you been chasing something this last week? Maybe you've been chasing something this whole last year. Maybe you have been chasing after a love your whole life. Only one thing works. Only one thing really satisfies, and that's the love that you don't have to chase after because it's chasing after you. When no one else in their right mind wanted to have anything to do with me, my God, my Hosea, found me and paid the price to make me his again. He unchained me from the shackles of addiction. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't just the opioids. See, the drug addiction is only a symptom. The drug that you use doesn't really matter. It's why am I going to these things? And that's what's cool about this series is all these principles that we're learning will help us deal with other chains that are holding us back in life. If it wasn't drugs, maybe it was spending money I didn't have to impress people I didn't like. All of these principles that we're learning, we can apply to the different chains that hold us back. Join us for our dramatic conclusion in our next session, part 10 of Unchained. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you.
The greatest love in the universe is actually the one you don't have to go chasing, because that's the love of your Creator and your Savior and our Creator and our Savior. What a most powerful message. This is the night before the last one.
Wow, that quickly.
And it's that quickly, Pastor Clifton, exactly. And, as we are beginning to feel a little longing already, there's good news. I'm going to share. We got about 10 minutes left, right, before the hour expires.
Yes,
So we're going to do the book away, but there's some amazing good news that we have been authorized to share beginning tonight, okay? But hang on. So before we go in that direction, let me just say again, on behalf of the two of us here and Pastor Ricci, the whole staff of Unchained, Hope from and Healing from Addictions, how blessed we are to have you attend this series of live streaming opportunities. It's been wonderful. Tonight's chat was just like, what's...
It's been phenomenal.
I don't even know how to say it. It's like, imagine one of those LA freeways out there you see on movies, That's how it is. It's still open. Yes, a lot of activity. It's good, right, to
it's awesome.
Share.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
And when it's about encouragement and strength, the amazing story that Dario Ziegler shared with us earlier today, just packed with...
It really was just, it was a phenomenal reiteration of the fact that no matter how deeply we may be chained in a situation, that opportunities will come as we recognize our condition so we can be free. And that was just, it was just a beautiful thing to be able to recognize. And I think he also crafted from his life story where addiction kind of grabs you and just gets tighter and tighter and tighter until your world implodes. And oftentimes while it's imploding, it's also exploding. And he talked about that with the relationships around him and the different things. And so I think as he talked about that being swallowed up, I think many people can relate to that when you're dealing with the challenge of trying to, first of all, acknowledge that you have a problem. Because he talked about all the different classic things. He talked about hiding. Mm-hmm. He didn't want anybody else to know what was going on. He talked about the shame of what he was dealing with. He talked about the fear of losing his job and losing opportunities. He talked about the hurt of losing the relationships that were important to him, but because of his addiction, he was not able to give them time. And in many ways, I can infer from what he said that he had kind of destroyed some relationships because he just didn't have time for that. But the end result, he came to that conclusion. That dark night.
Thank God.
That dark night.
Thank God.
And that dark night was
Just
really,
him and God
yeah.
pouring out. I mean, those moments, you can't put it to words. You know, it's easy to see. You know, it's way bigger than life. And that's the reality. That's this love that is beyond description. You know, when you look at unending and unconditional, we're not used to those two things here on earth, right? It's always tainted with some ulterior motive here and there, most of the time. But this love that comes from eternity and will live throughout eternity is the real deal.
And it's so powerful.
Yes,
I'm sorry,
very
Pastor.
powerful.
It's
No.
powerful
I'm so glad
to be able to have that love.
Yes, and you know, a lot of our viewers are just beginning to just do their own sharing from the chat platform, and I just want to say a big word of thanks to you, all of you doing that. Our virtual greeters, Cynthia and Yvonne as well, and so we will be back for, like Pastor Ricci said, the grand finale tomorrow. And if tonight you need immediate help,
Yes.
you know, that would be great, because when you feel you have that urgency,
Reach out.
something good
Reach out.
can happen. Reach
Reach
out.
out.
You see
Reach
the
out.
resources and the numbers on the screen. Just go ahead and take a screenshot of it so you have it easy. No need to write it. And then if you want us to pray for you, you can just say so on the chat, or you can go in the comment and do so as well. And you can also use that registration number to communicate with us. You know, you see it. If our media operators could pop that one up, it would be great. But here's before the good news. All right, we're going to build up the suspense to the last minute. We're going to do the book giveaway. Darkness will not overcome, and by our speaker, Pastor Ricci Halverson. The winner of tonight's book giveaway, there you go, you did the drum call, is Daryl Washington. All right? Yeah, Daryl Washington. If you're out there watching, just, you know, give us a shout out on chat. And we're going to be getting your book out sometime next week. Be on the lookout for that. And again, if you haven't registered yet, please do so, because we're going to have at least one more. We might get extra generous tomorrow at the grand finale and do 2 book aways. See, your chances will increase. But here's the good news to wrap it all up this time, and that is a lot of people are saying, wow, this has been a great experience, you know, online only. You know, it worked because this is a busy time, especially, you know, right now, the month of July, right? And they're saying, but, you know, did it have to end so soon, right? It'd be nice to have something. We're here to tell you, our dear viewers, all of you, your friends, and those of you who will be watching afterwards, because, you know, it more than triples. You know, a lot of people, I think, are working night shifts. You know, that's my only conclusion, right? I mean, I know I've got, you know, in the congregation and a lot of people in that situation, so that's fine. But here it is. At the end of next month, for 5 consecutive nights, guess what, folks? Right here in Montgomery. Right here in Montgomery, we're going to have in person. You will be able to shake hands with him and everything. None other than Pastor Ricci Halverson.
Wow.
Yes,
wow.
for 5 consecutive nights. We'll tell you about where this is going to happen exactly in the next few weeks, but just thought you all would love to hear that and start spreading the word, okay?
That's all right.
So thank you again so much for blessing us with your presence here one more time. God bless you real good tonight. We've got a thunderstorm roaming around our neck of the woods tonight. I hope it's nice and quiet wherever you are, and stay safe, rest well. We'll see you tomorrow night.